Disclaimer. We are not medical professionals or specialists. This is merely a conversation of our opinions. We are not contradicting anyone's personal views or values. This is our conversation. Topics such as suicide and abuse may also be discussed. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Hey Stigma Busters, welcome to our 5th episode of the Living Beyond the Horizon podcast, Posh Mentality. So how are you guys today?
Pretty good.
Tired, but motivated.
That's good.
I just woke up from a nap. I'm very, very well.
Nice. So today we're going to talk about the psychological and cognitive aspect of our umbrella of biopsychosocial facts.
So basically, cognition means thinking. And the main idea of the psychological aspect of mental health is the way we think about experiences can impact our emotions, because the reality is often shaped by how we view the world and the experiences we've got.
Yeah, definitely. I think I always refer to this, but when I think of Joker and just everyone views the world in such different ways too, right? To him, the world is a really grim place, considering everything he went through, considering the people he was with, considering his mom, considering his career, his mental disorders, and it was just we're in the same world, and how different can we be? And it's just wow, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, and even that's obviously in a larger scale, right? We're very different, but just seeing from person to person, just someone who's in your class and seeing how different their life is and how they react to a situation is so different from yours I want to say it's mind-boggling, because it's not something we often think about, right? Because it's always how do I perceive this? Not how do they perceive it, right? So I think that's something that definitely sticks out to me. And I think it definitely relates to a person's self-esteem, attitudes, coping beliefs, because it's different for everyone. And it also affects different situations, obviously differently, especially when it comes to your self-esteem and how confident you are with something and how insecure you are about something. Someone else might be confident about it, but you might be insecure about it. Just things like that as well. It's just something you should keep in mind, right? Especially when not being judgmental of it either. I feel like that's something that people always do. Just oh my God, they're scared of doing that? Really? Right? And just things like that.
And I think it's really important to have a good balance of negative and positive experiences, because the thing is, if you don't have too much negative experiences, that is obviously going to have a very negative and adverse impact on your mental health. But if you don't have any coping skills, you don't have any experience on what to do. So it depends on have you had enough negative experiences to be able to cope when a problem or an obstacle is in your way, or if you've had too much and then it just absolutely changes the way you see things and the way you see people.
Yeah, it's important to have a good balance, but unfortunately we can't really have control over what happens to us,
because I think one of the things we talked about last time is your support system, right? And your experiences in a relationship, and that can definitely cause a lot of psychological issues if you're not in a good support system, right? What's going to definitely follow is your self-esteem is going to go lower. Your perception of yourself is going to lower. Your social skills are going to go lower too, because at the time you feel insecure. How am I supposed to talk to these people, right? And just things like that. And then depending on how long you're in a relationship, it can definitely affect your temperament too, right? And just your temperament, the way you can be laid back, or especially if it's an adverse experience, especially with your friendships. I think one of the main things is a lot of insecurity and distrust when you move on to a next one.
Yeah.
Right? Right? So I feel like for friendships, it's a lot of luck. Right? You're kind of looking blindly. You can never just sit there and just be let me just write everyone's stuff down and what they are and just go make friends, right? It just happens. So I think with interpersonal relationships, it's just I feel like it's one of the major parts when it comes to your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think you learn a lot from your own friends as well.
And aside from like relationships or like our experiences, like grief or trauma that happens to us, like our behaviors also play a part in it. Like, for example, there's this thing called our response to reward, which is basically like how some people are more motivated to like do certain behaviors, like do this certain task, like doing your homework to get like a reward, like I don't know, getting like a snack or something, while others may be less motivated. This behavior is one of the few behaviors, many different behaviors that impact like how we see things or do things.
And this all sort of connects to the cognitive sort of thinking chain. Like, say you're given a situation, you can have irrational and negative thoughts or rational and positive thoughts. And then having either type of thought will lead to a feeling, which will eventually lead to a behavior or a habit that you have, like actions that you'll take, things that you'll do in response to those feelings and those thoughts.
Like there's like two routes to it. You can either start with, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to make a box, but typically in the cognitive thinking chain, there's the situation, and then you can either have, as Angela said, negative thought or positive thought. And when you have a negative thought, it can often lead to a feeling. For example, you were supposed to meet up with a friend, but then they didn't come on time. And what a negative or irrational thought can do is lead you to feeling angry. And they can result in like a huge response. Like maybe once your friend shows up, you might like yell at them or have like a negative response. But on the other route of the thinking chain is the positive and rational thought, which is where maybe you decide to be more patient and stick with more neutral feelings, and that will lead to a calmer response or behavior. So the thing about the psychological aspect of mental health is not everyone is able to cope as easily, because we're all different, right? Our brains all work differently, and it's completely fine if maybe it's easier for some people to feel angry or have huger responses. That doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's just how our brains have grown, right? So that's why we have psychiatrists or therapists that we can reach out to provide help. We often call this help CBT. CBT basically means cognitive behavioral therapy, and in that kind of therapy, your therapist or psychiatrist will probably ask you some questions and try to guide you and help you practice and train to have more positive and rational thoughts in contrast to irrational thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. And then that's like cognitive sort of distortions, like different sort of thinking styles. Everybody has like a different thinking styles, and it's different process that they go through given a situation or given like a problem or whatever. Like no matter what happens, we're all gonna keep on thinking. We all have like that own style of thinking. Like we each have our own twist, each thing that we go through. And then we either do this to like a greater degree than others or a lesser degree. But it's definitely very important to remember that just because, like something may happen more often when something else happens, that doesn't mean that that specific thing is causing it. So correlation is not the same as causation. So like a relationship between two variables or two situations does not mean that one situation is necessarily causing the other. And like even experts use this sort of statement, like especially in things like statistics and stuff. But here we're talking about mental health, and the thing is, for example, if say there's a correlation between you doing bad on a test and you getting sad, that doesn't necessarily mean that doing bad on the test makes you sad. It could definitely be a factor of making you sad, but perhaps there's like an underlying sort of factor that you're just not seeing. That underlying thing that you're not seeing is the really important sort of habit or situation that you have to deal with before you can, sort of address the other things and how those things affect you and your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I think one of the biggest things I took away, I think the main theme, especially going back to like the CBT and like the cognitive thinking chain, is not jumping to assumptions, right? I think often, because sometimes you don't want someone to be like, okay, something bad happens, I want to be positive about it. Sometimes you do need to feel those negative emotions to get through something. So a lot of the time it's not jumping to assumptions, right? And you really need to think about what's happening and not exaggerate the situation. Right? Just thinking of it as it is. And I think that's one of the main themes, like even like how Anja was talking about that. So just
Definitely. And we all have like our own mental filter as well. Like people will only see their success and others will think that they are, say, maybe overconfident or a bit irrational. And other people will only notice their failures and they won't see any good come out of anything that they do. And they'll be, it's like wearing, like that thing that like some people do is like,
I think
that
the
you
filter
wear,
thing you're saying was really good.
yeah, like the filter, like if you say you write something in red pen and you take a red transparent sort of plastic thing, you put it over that writing, you're not going to be able to see what you wrote at all. And that's sort of like this mental filter that we have here. It's like you can only see your failures or your successes and you can't see the other thing. You can't see perhaps what you're doing wrong or all of the things that you're doing right. And that's like the root of sometimes people feeling very upset because they can't do the other things.
And it can also be caused by like mental illnesses, right?
Definitely.
I'm gonna go a little bit backwards. For perception. For perception, it to me is all about like mindset. Either if you view like the common like friend, which is seeing the cup half full or half empty. I remember there was a game called Far From Noise, and basically you're the character that's in a car that's hanging on a cliff. And you can there's options that you can like think like for your mindset. And basically if you keep choosing negative answers and prescribing the situation as like totally hopeless and how your life got up to that point, then some people I've seen like in the comments, because I watched a video of it, basically some people think that the game has given up on them. But for some people it could be a wake-up call of if you keep looking down, then that's the only direction that you would go. And to me, that gave me a wake-up call of, hey, I can't always keep thinking this because it's doing way more harm than good. And yeah, I think that's also really important. And I know that some people don't know how to shift your mindset, but I think awareness is the first step to getting help. And
I think just adding on Zoe's point, it's just I feel like for the longest time when someone would be like, I was aware of like that, that ruminating state of where I would repeatedly think of something negative and I'd like keep it running in my head. It's the same thing over and over again. And I think I realized that not early on, but I realized that, right? And it was something I was more aware of, and I was able to interrupt those negative cycles. But then when I saw it in other people, like for example, my friends who I was always with, especially with your friends, that sometimes if it's the only thing you're hearing, and you want to contradict their thoughts in terms of like, oh my god, I'm gonna totally fail this test, or oh my god, this sucks, right? Like, it's a constant complaining. Like I heard from them too, and at some point it got aggravating, right? Because you're with them all the time and you're trying to think a different way. So, and I didn't understand that then, and I would just get irritated with it. But like I think how Zoe mentioned that, like some people don't know how to shift away from them. Like I know for some people thinking like this is a way to cope with stress, right? And it kind of goes back to the fact that everyone does things so differently and you can't assume there's something, especially when they won't openly say it, like my friends.
I think also something comes from family as well, because it depends on how you're raised. Like sometimes your family could you could be raised in a maybe like a harsher household, right? And that could change your mindset.
Yeah. Not I think for everyone, right? It's not always your place to judge or jump to assumptions of why they're doing that. Right? The most you can do is like if you're feeling uncomfortable, you can like walk away the situation. But sometimes giving advice to a person you don't know what they need help in, right?
Yeah.
It's not helpful.
Mhm.
And then we want to move on to I think cognition and versus I
Okay, so there's two main terms also. So earlier we learned about cognition, right? So another term similar to cognition is called metacognition. So first of all, cognition is basically just the act or the process of knowing, perception. You just know. For example, you see a pencil and you think, oh, this is a pencil, because you know this is a pencil, right? But metacognition is actually like the higher order of thinking that like enables you to understand and analyze that whatever you're thinking, right? It's kind of, in a way, you're kind of thinking about your thinking. Like, for example, when you see a pencil and you think, oh, this is not a good pencil. It's dull. It's not usable. Or a better example would be like when we write paragraphs, we're constantly thinking of how to make it better. Where we see, oh, this sentence seems a little dull, or this sentence is too long, or we're constantly, judging our own thinking. It's not a bad thing. It's what we all do, right?
And I think that just like puts more emphasis on like how important our thinking is, right? And where it can put us. I think in one of Billie Eilish's interviews, she goes, "I ruined so many things because I was sad," and I was like, "Damn," right? So I think a lot of it goes to that, and just having more awareness about it, and just knowing the power of your thoughts is big.
Yeah. Because I feel like our brains have definitely evolved a lot since like when humans first started,
We went from cognition to metacognition.
To me, it like really surprises, especially how you mindset, especially when I got into school, because I never realized how I knew mindset was important for like sports and like activities, but there was one time where our team was constantly losing and we really wanted to break that streak. So our coach really pushed us to change our mindset a bit and not give up hope so fast when the slant in scores is so wide. And we did for one of the games, and we completely dominated the other team. And honestly, that felt really good. That felt really good, and it was just all about mindset. Like nothing changed, particularly like in practice and in skill. Nothing changed, like particularly at that moment, but it was just mindset. And it was
That's awesome.
So fascinating.
Yeah, I think one of the another point that I wanted to point out was, disqualifying the positive. I think just relating to that, like a lot of the situations, especially for me, where something good would happen after a long time, I'd be like, well, yeah, I only did that because I only was able to do that because it was easy, right? And completely disregard this positive and be like, oh my God, whatever, it wasn't an achievement. Like I couldn't do the other thing because it was harder than this one, right? And it kind of keeps you in that spiral of just like, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can only achieve like the bare minimum. And I think that's definitely something that keeps you at the bottom. Especially for me, like I would like today I wasn't very productive, and then I started doing my book review and I was like, oh my God, but I wasn't productive the entire day. What's the point, right? Like if I get this done, what's the point? And I kind of just sat there just like, you know what, so what? If I'm happy I'm doing this right now, just let me do this, let me achieve this for once, right? And that kind of motivates you to go further once you've had that one stepping point. And I feel like that's something like the disqualifying the positive is something I see a lot, especially when it comes to like academics. So like, oh, this test was easy. This assignment was easy. Right? And you kind of discredit the work for yourself and other people around you.
So like adding onto Zoe's and Taz's point on like perception. So just today I was watching a video where a really renowned pianist was talking about like how they like can sight read so fast. And then some comments would say like, oh, I'm so bad at sight reading. Like, how are people able to sight read that fast? Like saying, oh, I've been playing like piano for like a lot of years already, but like my sight reading skills are still really, really poor. And in response to that really renowned pianist, she said, it's probably not about the skill, like as I always said. It's like you have enough skill if you've been playing for like 10 years, right? You have the skill, right? I mean, you have the experience already, right? It's probably your mindset that you have to change. It's probably you need to shift to a more like, because sight reading is not just about skills, right? It's also about like having a mindset and being okay with making mistakes. Because as like a musician, right? When you first pick up pieces, it doesn't matter if you're playing piano or flute or whatever. It could be any instrument, right? When you start playing a piece, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay if you're not going to be playing it perfect, right? When you start playing it, right? So you have to be okay with, making mistakes, and it's all about changing your mindset because you're working hard, right? You have those skills. It's just that what can set us back sometimes is our mindset.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of it's also like fear of failure. I feel like that's something that's ingrained in a lot of us, and it's made it super hard to get to things, right? And I feel like that relates to a lot of the unhelpful thinking skills, right? All or nothing, in a sense. Like if I can't get this entire thing right, I'm not doing it. What if I fail? Overgeneralizing, or just being like, I made one mistake, or I'm scared to make this mistake, and that definitely causes procrastination too, right? And just delaying things because you're just scared of starting, because you're just like I'm so scared of winning, right? Like I'm so scared of not winning. I'm not gonna do it. And I feel like, especially in academics and in terms of like, okay, people are always striving for like that 100%, right? Like I need to have 100% in everything. So I think that's one of the things I definitely saying like, okay, you know what? Even if you go try, that's like the biggest thing. You didn't stop.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of emphasis put on the journey, but more on that result. So I definitely think that contributes to unhelpful thinking styles and just labeling ourselves, right? Depending on that result and not the work you put into something.
Right. And going off from that school sort of example, important to have a healthy mindset, like a growth mindset, that failure does not mean that you're not smart. Like everybody has like perhaps like natural talents at like different sorts of things, and like say that you fail at one thing doesn't mean that you're going to fail the next time. Doesn't mean that you can't keep trying, you can't keep on working at it and improve. It doesn't mean that you are classified as stupid or anything like that. Like, don't label yourself like that.
Yeah, maybe it just means that you need more teaching, or like doing more practice, or just really just knowing that you're growing, and that it doesn't matter that you're failing. It does not mean it's the end, right? You can still grow.
I think that definitely also relates to, right? Like Angela was saying earlier, just like the correlation and causation. Not everything that causes this, or if it's correlated to this, doesn't mean it's because of this type of thing. I hope that makes sense.
And a lot of people these days, like especially some of my friends, like whenever they get like, say, going again back to the school example, because that's just happens so often. Like whenever like say my friends get a bad grade, they're gonna be like, I'm so stupid, or I'm so dumb. I can't believe I did that. And I'm just like, please don't talk down to yourself like that. Just because you did bad on this thing doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna be bad on every single thing from now on. It doesn't mean you can't continue to improve. And like another thing going from this is that you're not only boosting your own self-confidence and like sort of changing the way other people see you, like for the better, when you refuse to say that you are stupid, and then you acknowledge that failing does not mean that you are not intelligent. Like it also creates like sort of like, it lets people take others more seriously when somebody seriously says that they think that they are stupid. Because some people, like, they'll just say it, like, say as a joke. I failed this test, I'm so stupid, but they actually don't care. And then if somebody actually cares and they're actually feeling super down about this one thing. And when they say something like that, people don't take it seriously because people say it so often. And then
Yeah,
it just,
that's a problem.
it's sort of like, what's the word? It minimizes the impact of those words.
Yeah.
Like, for example, just going back to like sort of social, like going back a couple episodes to like social media influence and like a lot of people using words like anxiety or depression just so casually, it absolutely like destroys the
Just becomes a
actual
joke.
meaning.
It just becomes a joke.
It becomes a joke. It becomes such a casual word. It becomes such a casual word like goodbye or hello, and that's not okay because these words were
No.
specifically created for those people that don't need it. It's like there's an actual definition to that word, and you are not using it in the right context, and you are minimizing like the meaning of it. You're sort of dumbing it down, that it's not meant to be. It's supposed to be taken seriously. When somebody says that they think that they are stupid, it's important to acknowledge that and to encourage them. But if it is always taken as a joke, it's harder to know when somebody actually wants help.
Exactly. And you kind of brush it off. And it just feels like, okay, well, especially if it's with your own friends and you're kind of just like, oh, well, you're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And I think what I thought, like, I'm not trying to minimize the severity of it, but if someone went around saying, using these same terms, like using like physical, like physical diseases and illnesses in the same way, no, people wouldn't like it either.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I think mental health illnesses and issues should also be treated with the same respect, right?
Yeah.
Because it's something that can destroy lives and like make them up again as well.
Mhm.
It's how you live, right? So I think that's definitely a step. And then relating back to the, being afraid to fail and just being like, okay, I'm stupid and this and labeling yourself and keeping that same mindset, especially during the year, like the school year, you give up, right? You give up because you think you're, like, what's the point? Or like, I'm not worthy. I'm stupid. I can't do it. This is not my thing. The subject is not my thing. And you kind of carry on that same mindset throughout the entire year. I think that, like, for me, that was something that I carried, right? Especially in like early years of high school. But then it can be a harsh awakening, right? When you're just like, wait, it's just been me this entire time. It's not that it's not my thing. It's just the way I'm thinking.
Yeah, besides growth mindset, like other cognitive interventions that we need to promote mental health to avoid having those kinds of mindsets are having those opportunities to have success or things we do to let us have healthy risk-taking behaviors to like challenge us a bit.
I think a lot of it's just like taking these challenges and risks without fearing what other people are gonna think or just the risk. It's like, let me just focus on this first, right? Just taking it one day at a time. Once again, well said, Nina.
And that can help us practice like emotional regulation, right?
Definitely.
And if you ever think that your mindset's going like really, really down to a point where you just feel like you can't get out of bed, for example, then I think it's very important to seek counseling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I shared was, let's normalize therapy like we normalize going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now people who go to therapy, like some outsider who doesn't understand the situation, automatically thinks that there's something incredibly wrong with them. Right? Like they're not a normal person. They're not someone to communicate with. You should be scared of them. And I think that's just like, where is the logic in that person's head? It's like, no. Taking therapy is a strength.
Yeah.
Right? To be able to get out and just be like, I need help and I don't care what she says or whoever says, right? So
yeah, and also normalizing going in high school, also normalizing going to the counselor. Because remember the first time in grade 8 when I was like really, really struggling, I went to the counselor, or I told my friend once, and her immediate reaction was, "What did you do?" And I was like, "What?" And like she said,
No.
she says like, like normally people go to a counselor because they get in trouble.
What? No, that's so not true.
No.
It's so
And it-
not true.
Yeah, and honestly,
Like,
that
bro.
made
talk.
me feel really sad. And
Yeah.
why
Yeah, of course.
it's like for mental health,
It makes a lot of
For-
people scared to go to the counselor.
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
like glasses help you see better. So why can't I go to the counselor or therapist to help my mental health?
Yeah, just to feel better, to perform better, to like be satisfied with yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's such a
Like,
big
you're-
thing. Like, why else are we alive? You know, honestly.
like, yeah, as like Zoe said, like if you're not judging, if someone's wearing glasses, you're not judging them for wearing glasses, right? So why would you judge them for going to see a counselor? Because it helps them improve their mental
Exactly.
health. Because glasses help improve your sight, right? It's basically the same as going to a counselor because that improves your mental health. So that definitely needs to be normalized.
The funny thing about that is that a lot of people actually do still make fun of people for wearing glasses, calling them four eyes on purpose when they know that it's hurtful to the person and not saying it as a joke. Because I do know people that like do that, like, or have done that. It's like they know how hurtful it is. And even it's such a small thing too. It's literally just wearing glasses. Like you need them to see. It's like sort of, is it classified as a medical thing? I don't know, but it's like you need them to see. You need them to see better because eyes are one of your five senses, and it's needed. It's mandatory sometimes. Why are you hurting someone's feelings just because about something that they need in their life? It's like telling somebody that there is something so ridiculously wrong about them if say that they just have vitamin supplements or something. Like it's such a small thing too, and a lot of people make a big deal about it, or like even say getting braces or having a retainer. Like that's such a small thing too, but people need it or they want it to have their teeth straightened. But there will be people that bully them because their teeth don't look the same way or they have something extra on their teeth that other people may not have. And then like with if people can't respect others with such a small thing like glasses, it's so much harder to do that with something more important and sort of bigger with like mental health issues, like going to the counselor. Sort of like the same thing, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Why should you feel ashamed for trying to improve your quality of life? That's just
Exactly. Oh my god. I think just like another little story. In grade 9 or 10, I had a test, a math test, and they're kind of like consecutive tests where I wasn't performing well because I told my mom I was just like nervous or something. Do you know what she did? She made an appointment with the school counselor. Our school counselor. And I remember at that time I was absolutely appalled. I was like, Mom, why in the world would you do that? I was so embarrassed. I remember just like hiding my face as we went to the school counselor and just like sitting there and like crying out of embarrassment in front of Miss White and just being like, I'm not anxious, I'm fine. But I remember just being, but the thing was like, I think I remember going and Miss White didn't make me feel like the counselor, right? She didn't make me feel outed or just like I was weird or. So I think what I was gonna say, I was like appalled. I was like, oh my god, Mom, why did you bring me? Yeah, I remember just like hiding my face. But again, like Miss White didn't make me feel like I was weird. Right? She was like, she told me that like, you know what, this is something that a lot of people go through, and it's like test anxiety. So she told me about how like a part of our brain actually closes when we're really nervous, and I think that's something that definitely helped her for future on. And then going to seek counseling was no longer something that was, for me at least, like it wasn't something that you should be ashamed of, and it's something that, you know, like I went in again and again for, right? Like not like, you know, like if I had anything, I'd go to Miss White. Like if I had like, I think I went to her a couple times, like because I wanted to pursue psychology or just like stuff like that. Like I was no longer just like oh my God, it's weird. I think that was definitely a harsh awakening that I was put through. But, that's my little long story. All right. So just to kind of tie everything together, despite any situation, everyone may perceive the same circumstance or the situation in several ways. So judging or assuming one's reasoning for their thoughts will only increase the likelihood of individuals to hide away from the opportunity to speak out and seek help or merely discuss it with someone they trust. And it also increases the likelihood of keeping all their growing troubles to themselves. This will only lead to even more stigma to breed in our society. So the biggest thing to come away from this is not to judge and not to jump assumptions when dealing with a person or any situation. Take a moment to think about how you feel and the other person feels before acting.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. I think this episode was definitely one of our more relatable and more, not more important, but it's definitely a very important episode with very important things and facts that we should
Examples?
And examples too that we should be more, mindful of or learn about ourselves and about others and our, different processes and perspectives. Thank you for listening. Stigma Busters out.